Welcome to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein, talking about the evolutionary, the revolutionary, the inspiration and the perspiration, and those aha moments that change everything. And now, here's your host, Rich Goldstein.
Rich Goldstein here, host of the Innovations and Breakthroughs podcast, where I feature top leaders and the path they took to create change. Past guests include Joe Polish, Roland Frazier, and Joe DeSena. This episode is brought to you by my company, Goldstein Patent Law, where we help you to protect your ideas and products. We've advised and obtained patents for thousands of companies over the past 26 years. So if you're a company that has software, product, or design you want protected, go to goldsteinpatentlaw.com, where there are amazing free resources for learning about the patent process. And you can email my team at welcome@goldsteinpc.com to explore if it's a match to work together. You could also check out the book I wrote for the American Bar Association that explains in plain English how patents work. It's called the ABA Consumer Guide to Obtaining a Patent. I have with me here today David Goldstein. David is the co-author of the best-selling book Creative You, which explores the ways in which personality type impacts creativity and how understanding your own personality type can be an access to creativity. David runs a patent search company, GIC, which has been performing all of the patent searches for my firm for more than 20 years. David is also an internationally recognized artist. He was commissioned by the Pan American Health Organization to create their symbol for World Health Day. David is also my brother. And by brother, I don't mean a close friend that I consider a brother. I mean my actual brother in the sense that we have the same parents and grew up together. I'm very pleased to welcome here today my brother, David Goldstein. Welcome, David.
Thanks, Rich. Nice to see you. I haven't seen you in a while, actually. You look good.
I know. It's true. Do you mind if I call you Dave?
Excuse me?
Do you mind if I call you Dave?
Oh no, that's fine.
Okay, great.
You've called me worse over the years.
Yeah, that's true. So, ordinarily at this point, we talk about origin stories. So where you came from. What was it like, growing up, you had a roommate. What was it like sharing a room with that roommate of yours in those formative years?
Yeah, I liked it. I liked having a younger brother. Actually, when he was first born, I wasn't very pleased. And I was given a toy. I still remember what the toy was, but soon after that, I got over it and appreciated having a little brother who was really wonderful to have around.
Great. Well, hopefully I made up for it over the years. And then just in terms of, your background. So you went to college for imaging science. So you studied kind of technology related to imaging, kind of before imaging became the thing that is now, especially digital imaging, right? It was
right.
Really
In fact, it was called photographic science when I started it, and it was really about the photographic process. And I worked as a chemical engineer for a little while, making the emulsions on photographic film. But as I was in college, it was changing into digital, and we started taking classes more with electronics and the digital imaging, and actually changed the name of the major while I was going to school from photographic science to imaging science.
Interesting. And so you had that background, and then also, and that kind of led you into, you did further work in digital imaging. You were selling equipment for a while, back when a workstation to do graphic arts was tens of thousands of dollars, right?
That's right. I was a systems integrator. I had my own business selling equipment. At that time, you needed a real technical person just to attach the monitor to the CPU. And we had digital printers with color, which was unheard of at the time. What's kind of interesting, it went for quite a while and it was evolving as a company. And one of the difficulties was the technology was growing so quickly that I was spending a lot of my time learning and keeping up with the latest technologies, because I was recommending to my customers what was latest and greatest. One of the side notes to this was that the clients sometimes took so long to make their decisions. I would price it close to cost. And then by the time they made the decision, it was 6 months later, the pieces were,
the cost went down, but the price they committed to was
exactly.
There was actually some profit, I guess, in there.
So I was winning a lot of bids by pricing things at cost and then waiting for them to make the decisions. And then exactly. The downside to all this was the amount of time I was spending making proposals and keeping up with it. I was just myself, and it was just a lot to keep up with at the time.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think you're probably a little bit too early into something that became huge,
Right.
eventually. And, and you transitioned into patent searching. You created a patent search company, and we've been working together now for 20 something years at this point.
That's right. And even before that, my computer company transitioned into an internet company way before the internet took off. I'm talking about like 1992, 1993.
Right.
And everyone was interested, but I spent all my time teaching them what it was about. I was teaching people how to do HTML coding. I was doing all kinds of things. And then I created my own website, which was kind of like a Yahoo. It was a graphical Yahoo. It's still out there, called Old Town Crossroads. And I kind of threw my hat in the ring trying to get into this newest technology to create an index. This was before there were indexes or search engines. And mine had won all kinds of awards and things, but we didn't figure out how to monetize it. I had a partner who was a graphic designer, and we worked together on it. And at the time, I had to pay my bills, and Richard was up in New York. He was a patent attorney. He was like, David, you need to pay your bills. And why don't you figure out how to do these searches? I keep sending these big projects down to companies.
You have technical background, you understand technology. And so that was a good fit. And I guess the rest is history.
That's right.
But yeah, it's funny. Like I forgot about that. The Old Town Crossroads websites. That was truly kind of like, that's what other companies did years later, which was make websites that was centered around the location, like a city, and all the different restaurants and the things to do in that city. But you really did it before anyone, and that must have been 1995, maybe, or somewhere.
I was out of it by 95 almost. Well, yeah, 93 to 95, we were doing that.
93 to 95. That was early internet days.
It pre-imaged most of things on the web. We had everything figured out in a small, teeny way.
Lots of HTML links, I remember,
Right. And I wish I had the understanding to patent all those ideas at that time. Because we had everything from wedding registrations to how the city hall runs the work, to libraries, to everything on that site.
Yeah, absolutely. So interesting. And, I think the thing that ties it all together is creativity. And so, like, in terms of creativity, like, there's different forms that's taken for you, but one of them is art. And so back when we were kids, you were into sketching and oil painting. Like, I think the main subject that you like to paint was ships, like the sailing ships of, of the explorer era, or the 15th, 16th, 17th century type, clipper ships. If I'm even giving it the right name, but that was your favorite subject, and that's evolved over time too. So you've done quite a bit in art, and eventually, like, that was a hobby back then, but it took on a much bigger role, a kind of much more consistent part of your day. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. And well, I did come home from school and just enjoy creating at the time. And when I was picking a major for college, I was also very into photography. I had a black and white darkroom in my house. I was on the yearbook staff, and I was always interested in creating something. The major I took, imaging science, I thought it would be somewhat related to photography, but it was really all science. Really, I went to work. After college, I got an MBA. I kind of gave up with artwork and creativity for quite a while. And then around the year 2000, my wife was always relaxed by watching TV in the evening. And I was not. I had to do something. I was really busy during the day, and I set up a little table in the same room so we could be together. And I started painting and drawing, and then taking watercolor classes. Beginning watercolor classes also. And little by little, this turned into more of than a hobby. I started hanging the paintings in my house, and people wanted to buy them, and it turned into a portion of my profession.
Absolutely. And you were very prolific. I mean, like at a certain point, when you would show the work that you'd done lately, it was kind of drawers and drawers full of artwork. You were, I guess, creating about a painting a day at a certain point.
I think so. Yeah. And one of the things I like about watercolor, then I was doing oil, but watercolor is you could actually complete it in a short amount of time. So I could have this vision, execute it, and be done with it and move on, and then learn from it and do something else the next time.
Right. Well, we're leaving out something there. You said have a vision and plan it, right? Plan it, like do lots of planning and then execute it, right? That's part of your modus operandi for creating the work.
Absolutely. And that's what I ended up writing a book and spending 8 years researching on.
That's where I was going with it. I was going to say, we'll bookmark that to get back to, we talk about the book, but like that style of creativity, I guess you came to discover like, this is your way of being creative, but it wasn't the same for other people.
That's right. And I was I took 4 different beginning watercolor classes because I had confidence. Mom gave us a lot of confidence. She praised everything we did.
Aren't you so
bad it might have been at the time. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Paintings. Richard, look at, like, can you hear how he plays the piano? Isn't he talented? Which is awesome. I mean, I'm saying it that way. It's just, but it's true. That encouragement was always there.
Right.
Yeah.
And back to our early childhood, our dad was always there to drive us to Little League or to Cub Scouts. He always had the equipment we needed. We needed something for a project. He would bring it home from Manhattan the next day.
Lots of support in different ways.
Right.
Like lots of support from dad to make sure we had what we needed to do whatever we wanted to do to support the hobbies that we had, and lots of like support from mom in terms of encouragement and things along those lines.
Right. And going with that support, I felt that I can do these paintings. I had teachers who were beginning watercolor teachers who had their own way of being creative. And to me, it was discouraging. I like to plan in advance, and sometimes use photographs, and they would say, no, it has to come from spontaneity. It shouldn't be planned, or this shouldn't be finished. Or they would say, I'm not using the right color. And I would use the colors I felt were expressive, and they were telling me it was the wrong color, which was kind of crazy. But I had the confidence to keep continuing. And along that time, I had met my neighbor, who was Otto Krager, and he was one of the world-renowned experts in personality type. And he took me to some seminars teaching me about Myers-Briggs and how everyone has different personalities. And I saw the connection between personality type and how we create. And I realized we all have different ways of being creative, and we're often discouraged away from our creativity by someone who's very creative, very generous to show how they do it. But if we don't do it the way they do it, we feel like we're doing it wrong. It's not right for us.
And that experience could have been like even our art teacher in school, and like where, sometimes, and there are some artists who will talk about like an art teacher that they really kind of connected with and mentored them. And then there are other times when there was a disconnect where it's like the art teacher wants me to do this way, but that doesn't work. And a lot of times that's when we stopped, that's when we stopped creating, and it became frustrating. And we might say, I loved painting when I was a kid, but I don't know, for some reason I stopped doing that at some point, and it just very well might have been that it was a teacher or someone else that we were working with. I mean, it could have even been a boss, like if we were working in a field that involves artistic work, someone who if essentially became a block to our creativity simply because they looked at creativity different than we did.
Absolutely. And I interviewed so many people, and they said, well, I used to be creative. I used to do this. And then I was discouraged away. The kids in the class laughed at me because I painted the sky purple, or the teacher didn't like the way my new dance step. When we create anything original, our society says we want things that are original, but when we see something that's different, we kind of laugh at it, or we don't accept it so well. So it takes a lot of courage in yourself to stand up on the table and say, this is my new idea. and not care if people laugh or not, and realize that I'm working within my own strengths. This is my personality, and this is who I am. And the more we understand our own personality type, the more we can know our own strengths and what we do good. And that's why it's so important.
Yeah, I think that's great. And so you teamed up with Otto, and so Otto is a best-selling author of books on Myers-Briggs personality types. He was one of the leading experts in the world and best-selling author, a fantastic man, and he was your neighbor. And so, kind of like through noticing this on your own, and then kind of getting to confer with Otto about it, you came about the idea of writing this book, Creative You.
That's right. And we try to find creative individuals of each personality type. Within the Myers-Briggs system, there's 16 different types, and we try to show that every type is creative. Even at the time, the Myers-Briggs kind of pointed toward a few types as being creative, but I saw creativity in everyone. Some of the most detailed traditional people are creative by creating within a system. They know how to work within a system, solving immediate problems in the moment. And it's very different than a different type of creative person who might be like a Elon Musk, who's pie in the sky, anything is possible. But there are two different ways. And we broke this down into 16 different ways to see how different people can have a starting point to understand themselves better and to know what they're bringing to the table. Often it's the outlier, our unique skills that we're bringing to the table. If you're a policeman and everyone is kind of a policeman type, but you come in and you're kind of a different type, you're bringing something very different to that profession. And you're swimming against the stream, but you also have the ability to create tremendous value. So understanding how we're unique allows us to create lots of value.
Right, and be an asset, because it sounds like, one of my views is that creativity is about knowing the rules and breaking the rules, right? And so, like, if you're if everyone in your field is creative in a certain way, and you're bringing something different, that kind of is kind of the essence of creativity. You're not following the same rules as them, so there's an opportunity for you to be creative in a way that they haven't been or aren't currently.
Right, absolutely. And just knowing the environment where you are most creative. Some people thrive in a brainstorming type of environment with lots of people around them, like Otto, my co-author. So we have different styles. And Otto, who I co-authored with, was an extreme extrovert, very charismatic. And his style was when we had a new idea, was to gather people around and test things out. And my style was to do more research in the library. As an introvert, I love time alone, thinking, researching. And the two of us together, we would combine these two approaches and talk about it, and it would make a much stronger collaboration. And often when we build teams, we find people similar to ourselves. When we have someone who's different than ourselves, we understand the differences, we could use this very, very powerfully in a way of collaborating. So it's not just understanding ourselves better, it's understanding the other people around us and building teams.
Yeah, absolutely. So then it's not just about like, hey, how do I get back to drawing and painting? It's like, how do I actually learn how to understand other people's creativity styles so that we can collaborate better on
That's right.
Whatever
Yeah.
we're working on.
And even as far as art goes, you'd think of it as a very solitary type of process. But if you are an artist who is selling your work, it's a small business like anything else. And I've collaborated with curators and promoters and people who say, oh, look at David's work, or we should hang it. They go out to places to figure out where to hang artwork. And they're more out there, more extroverted, and they're adding a piece to the puzzle, which I can do, but I don't enjoy doing it. And what we're talking about when we talk about personality type, we talk about our preferences, what we prefer to do. Now, I could do it. I could knock on doors and find places to hang the artwork, and I could generate a mailing list and people to show up to an event, but it's not going to be my best work. Our best work happens when we're working within our preferences. So when I'm creating within my preferences, when I have alone time, when I'm not going to get into all the aspects of it, but I'm doing my best work. And when using my non-preferences, I could still do it, but it's not going to set the world on fire.
Got it. So then people understanding their preferences for how they prefer to create then gives them access to creating their best work.
That's right. And it gives them a window into to know who to collaborate with.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, so I think, in general, we could talk a little bit about patent searches. Maybe we'll just go over to that for a few minutes. So,
sure.
When you're doing patent searching, I often tell people about the advantage of the type of search that we do compared to just doing an online Google search. So, do you want to maybe just take a couple of minutes and illuminate that from your standpoint, having done thousands and thousands of searches over the years?
Right. There's a couple aspects of trying to do your own search. One is, I think if you have your own invention, you have this mentality, a mindset that it doesn't exist. And when I get a search from Richard or another client, the first thing my mindset is, this absolutely exists, and I'm going to use all my effort to find it. So that's a different mindset to even start the process. The other part is that you could do a keyword search, but there's so many different ways things are described, and you get somewhere, but you're not going to get a real thorough, good search. The patent office has 250,000 classifications. So it's almost like going into a supermarket going, this is the beans aisle, this is the produce aisle, this is the international aisle. And the more you understand how things are classified, don't go up every aisle if you need a can of beans, go into the canned goods aisle. And this is kind of what I do. I strategize to understand where I need to go to look. And then I'll look through all the canned beans and I'll find the garbanzo beans. And I said garbanzo beans because they could be called chickpeas. If you keyword searching for chickpeas, you're not going to find everything. So it's classified by subject, and that's really the way to go. And you could find classifications to look at, but it's a combination of having lots of experience doing it too. And it's almost like a game of concentration. Seeing thousands and thousands of searches and seeing what you're not looking for, you kind of know what to look for next time. So even though there's 250,000 classifications, what I love to do is try to guess. It's almost like those games of 3-card Monte. Which cup am I going to pick up to find the results? Out of 250,000 cups, I'm usually pretty good at finding the 3 or 4 that are going to have the inventions I'm looking for.
Right. And like playing the game of concentration, I guess by analogy, it's like, okay, I saw that. Where did I see that before? Where is it? And so just, like remembering the different classifications and subclasses that you've looked through and like, kind of like, yeah, I think I know where to look for that one. And then you can look down that road, check it out, and then check out something different, but this way you can cover a good amount of ground to really find the best results possible.
Right, because you could look forever in the wrong place. The key is to find the right place to look. A very well-targeted search is really how to start going with it. And it's an art and a science, and I'm both an artist and a scientist, so it kind of fits well. Somehow I fell into this thanks to Richard, and I love doing it. I think it's something that it's something I really enjoy.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. And thanks for that detour. But I really enjoyed talking about creativity and your path in creativity. And if you happen to be seeing the video version of this podcast, you could see some of David's paintings in the background. But if not, go to davidbgoldstein.com. He really has incredible artwork. And his book Creative You is available on Amazon.com. I actually kind of have the honor of having many of David's paintings in my house, and I think I got lucky because because Dave, when you moved to Hong Kong for a few years, you left them with me for safekeeping. Then and then ultimately you're like, I put them up on the walls, and you said, well, you could hang on to them.
Yeah,
but
never take them off your walls.
but it's funny. And I met some years ago, David used to only sell prints of his work and not originals. And like I would meet Dave's friends who had bought many of his prints and would say like, wow, you own an original? Like, how did you do that? But he actually does sell originals of his work now and has branched out from watercolor into acrylic. Cool stuff, like really great stuff. So I mean, you can check that out, davidbgoldstein.com, and again, Creative View on Amazon. And I don't know if I stole your thunder for my final question, which is if people want to learn more about you or get in touch with you, how do they go about doing so?
Well, also, as you said, davidbgoldstein.com. The B is important. There's a million David Goldsteins out there. So it's davidbgoldstein.com. I'm also on Instagram, and you could find my book, Creative View, anywhere, Amazon, Barnes & Noble's, bookstores around the world. It's even been translated into Russian. So if you're a Russian language person, you could look for that. And it's been very popular among inventors, creative people, teachers, thought leaders. A lot of thought leaders and coaches find it to be a useful book. So,
yep, a great book. And Dave, as always, great to see you. Great to talk with you. But thanks so much for doing this interview and being on this podcast.
I'm happy to, Rich, and I hope to see you in person soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web at innovationsandbreakthroughs.com, and we'll see you next time.